So we live in interesting times. I've certainly never seen anything quite like this before. We've lived an amazingly peaceful last 50, 60 years, but that isn't generally normal. It's not a normal situation for humans, is it? If we dig back into history, and of course we study the 18th century, kind of 1700 to 1830 or so, and that time period is full of tumult and difficulty, especially here in North America. Lots of war going on, a lot of strife, cultures clashing. Of course, they had to deal with starvation. They had to deal with things like epidemics multiple times through this time period. And we have a large quantity of writings that we can dig back into, read about, and sort of vicariously experience and even kind of get to understand what those were like. All of these people writing about the circumstances, sometimes in journals day to day as it's happening to them, and other times memoirs as they're looking back on these times. And it is truly, truly educational. Most of us can't really believe these stories as we read them. How did they survive this? Whether it's somebody in a prison ship or someone out on the frontier in isolated circumstances, all different sort of civilian situations where they have to flee from war, whatever that is. We're not used to that. We're not used to experiencing that, and it can seem sort of distant and we can't connect with it. Part of the things that we do here on the channel is we connect with it by dressing the way they dressed and experiencing life the way they experienced it, cooking the way they cooked it, cooking the same foods they ate, and even sometimes learning the skills or living like that during the weekend, just so that we can get a taste of that. And it certainly sort of realigns your thinking. And now, of course, some of us are sitting in sort of that same situation. What do we do if we're isolated and we can't go places? How do we survive on what we have available to us? And how do we not go crazy when we can't go out? Well, they had those same sort of problems, those same difficulties. They got through them. Some of them got through them the same ways you would think. It's like, what happens when a family is isolated on the frontier in the wintertime? Well, they played games with each other, and they did crafts and skills that they could do, that they could bring into their house and do. They sang songs, whatever it took, read books, and they dealt with that. And they lived on less and less each day because that's what they had available to them, and cooked in special ways because they didn't have fresh things available to them. So again, we can learn an awful lot. And in the past 10 years we thought, well, that's just a good way of looking at it. But maybe sometimes those same turmoils and troubles come to visit us, and we need to dig into that. We need to dig into that and learn from those folks in the 18th century. But it turns out that all those difficulties, difficulties that they had to live through, that's in our very historical makeup. Our predecessors had to deal with these exact same things that we've had to deal with, and even worse. And we will get through them as a society and a group. We will get through it, and remember that it was those difficulties that caused better things to happen in the future. So we can hope for that, and we can dig back into their writings, learn so much from what they do. I always just every time enjoy it, and it certainly always resets my thinking into what it's like today, and the difficulties that I have to deal with in the days to come, in the day to come. So I hope that you've enjoyed this little talk today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a great day.